Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. We're going to continue building our Vue front end. So we're going to focus on, in this video, is just building the login field. So not even the create your own account field, but just the login field. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new div in the not logged in area. Okay, we're going to call this div ID equals login. Actually, login form. Okay, and then basically we'll have a form here. So what I'll do is I'll create a field set that has a legend, and that legend will say login, and we'll add some form fields. Input equals type equals text. Input type equals text. Placeholder equals username, and actually the name of the field. We don't even need a name of the field at the moment. And then just do input type equals text. Actually, make this a password field. And placeholder equals password. And then we'll have a button that is login. See how that looks like on the screen. So there is our login field. We're not styling it right now, so it just looks the way it looks. Cool. Now what I want to do is create in my view a field or some properties to bind to that form. So we're going to say create username okay and create password. Okay, and I'm going to bind those fields with the form. So I'll just go over here and do a v model equals create un, and then v model equals create password. Okay, so that way those are bound to that. And now we just need a function to click that login button. So I am going to create a new methods property on the Vue object. And the first one's going to be called handle login. So let's see here. What do I want to do here? I need the URL, so I'm actually going to put the URL in my data. So I'm going to have dev URL, which is going to equal localhost, well, http/www dot or localhost 3000, and then we'll have prod URL, which will be an empty string. Or actually, we'll make it null for now. And then in our function, basically, we're going to say the URL, so const URL equals prod URL, because that way if prod URL has a value, it'll assign that. But right now it's null, so it won't. So if it does, it would assign prod URL, and actually that would be this dot prod URL because it's part of the data object. So this dot prod URL, and if it's false, then it's going to assign this dot dev URL. So this way later on when I do add the production API URL in there, it'll just automatically switch. Okay. So let's just make sure that that works. So console.log URL. Okay, and then I'm going to attach this function to the button. v on click equals handle login. Okay, and was that camel case the handle login? Yes, it was. Okay. So let me open up the inspector. Click on the login button. Good. Okay, good. So we are getting the right URL. That works for me. Whew. Let's see here. Now what I want to do, back to app.js, is that after we do that, I want to create an object with the user. So const user equals a new object where the username is this dot create UN, so it's what they put in the username field in the form, and password is create PW, or this dot create PW. So let's make sure that's working. Console.log user. So let's see if I type in Alex Merced, pineapple. Good, it's working. Not didn't spell pineapple right, but that is creating what I needed to create. Good. So now we just need to do the API call. So fetch, and we're gonna fetch to. I'm gonna use backticks. So the URL we're fetching to is URL / login. Then we have to pass in an object. Okay, so again, method. The method for the login route was post. Okay, we need headers because we're submitting JSON. Headers, content type equals application JSON. That's the headers. Okay, what else do we need? We need the body. So that's going to be JSON.stringify, and we're just stringifying the user object. Now, why is we haven't body init object or null set to request? Oh, I need a comma. That's why. There we go. So there is the request. Then I gotta take dot then. So dot then. So we're gonna get the response, which I need to turn into JSON. So response.json. And then we need another dot then, and that's where we get finally our response, our actual data back. And right now I'm just going to console log the data just to make sure that the data is what I think it is, which should be an object with our user and the token, which the token is really what I want. Console.log the data. Okay, so there's our fetch. Now let's see if this works. So Alex Merced, pineapple, hit login. What happened there? Oh, I think I know why. Because it reset the form. So Alex Merced, log, Alex Merced, pineapple. Okay, so I have a feeling it's refreshing the page. Even though it's not a form, I guess the field set brings on the form functionality. So that means I'm going to need the event. And I need to do event, pass the event to the function. And then I need to do event.prevent default. and that should prevent the page from refreshing. So let's try this again. Alex Merced, pineapple. That still seems to be refreshing. Let me think as to why. Your name, data, console log data. I think it's because of our backend code actually. So let me go to our backend code because I have a feeling there's probably a redirect signal coming in the response. So let's see here, public app controllers, user controller, login, render JSON. No, I'm not seeing it. Take a look at. Let's go back to our app.js. Fetch URL / login, method post, headers, body JSON. That seems right. And let's see, it's getting the deal. Okay, so it is getting the request. We can see it right over here in the browser, or I mean in the terminal. Be on click, handle login, field set. Let's see what happens if I comment out this line and this line. Still give me the same problem without the field set. Alex Merced, pineapple. It is. Let's try this. Alert data. Fetch URL login, method post, that's handle login, and then we're saying this button v-click and handles handle login. Well, let me see if it's the fetch. So what happens if I comment out the fetch? And we just console.log hello. So the fetch seems to be causing a restart, and I'm just trying to figure out why. Log in, the username and password. That is correct. I have Postman still open, so let's try it out there. Login, raw, username, username, Alex Merced, password, pineapple. Oh, that's supposed to be a post. And see, that's supposed to get us back this. Okay. So it should be like data. So we should be getting response.json. What am I missing? It's a post. Let's make this all uppercase post. So network. If I type in Alex Merced, Pine, Apple, login. See, it refreshes the page. Question is, why is it doing that? Now here's what I'll do instead. I'll just wrap it up in a form tag and just do it the way, set it up as a more traditional form. If I can just get my index.html back. So that means what I'd have to do is uncomment this out. And then do a form tag. Put that over here. And then make this happen on submit. So v on submit equals handle login. So this would have to be a submit button. So input type equals submit value create user. So now, go back to my app.js, and here we're passing in the event, which should be passed in event.prevent default. This is refresh. Alex Merced, Pineapple, and maybe I need to do it differently. So let's see here. View prevent default. Let's see here. Could be purely inside of a data logic. Ah, okay, so we have to do dot prevent there. Okay, so let's try that. Dot, so that's a view thing. So we just go on the form. So right here where we do, I need to double check what that was put. Dot, okay, so be submit dot prevent. Okay, prevent. So let's try that, see if that fixes it. Alex Merced, Pineapple. Something weird about this, and I'm not seeing. Okay, so let me see here. This matches up with that. This matches up with that. It's something about the fetch that's causing this problem. Okay, so that was a wacky error. So basically, the reason why it kept refreshing wasn't because of anything in our code. It was because live server will do that. Live server, which is an extension in VS Code, if it noticed certain file downloads, so I think in this case it was like the download of the token, it will refresh. And so what I've done is I've reopened it just in my browser, so I'm not using live server now. Just reopen it that way, so that way we can bypass that behavior, and it works. The only other change I did make is that I added this prevent for view. So for view, you don't use the prevent default function. You just chain .prevent at the end of your event directive. Okay. So if you guys want to pause it and take a look at that for a second. But otherwise, it does what we were saying it should do. Okay, it just makes the post request and gets back the token, which we see in the browser. Okay, so we see here. So we get back this object, and what we really want is the token. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a place to store both variables. Okay, user. We'll say it's null, and token, which we'll say is null. Okay, so then instead of console logging this data, what it's going to do, it's going to say this dot user equals data dot user. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Yep, user and token. Okay, and this dot token will equal data dot token, so the data from our API. And then we're going to switch this dot logged in to true. And you are logged in. And now we have the token and the user available to us while we're logged in. Okay, so let's hit, that should automatically save. So let's go try this out again. Alex Merced. Pineapple. I click on the thing. And see it logged in. And see the minute that it switched the variable, the page switched. Nice. Now we just need a log out button, so we can log out. So let's do that. So let's go back over here and add a log out button to, this is the user area. So we'll have a button that's called log out. And in there, all we're going to do is create another method. So let me just see where this method ends. So it's, that method ends here. So we'll have a handle logout function. Which I need a comma there. So function, and instead of copying the same code over and over again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another method called get URL function, curly brackets, put a comma after the curly brackets, and I'm going to copy this logic into there. Control X. So what we're going to do is return. I just think, is it worth having that line in there? Nah, it's not worth the extra function. So I'll just copy this line again. Put it in the front of my handle logout function. You know, I don't really need to make any kind of post request, because technically the logout, all I have to do is switch those variables back. So when you click on this button, all this is going to do is just take this dot logged in, turn that back to false. Take this dot user, turn it back to null. This dot token, and turn that back to null. And that's all it needs. That would do what I needed to do. Okay, because when that logged in variable switches, that's when it should switch the screen back to the login screen. So v on click equals handle, what did we call it? Handle logout. Okay, handle logout. Okay, let's see if it works. Back over here, refresh the page. I log in, Alex Merced. pineapple. It logs in. Now if I click log out, and it logs me back out. I log in, log out, log in, log out. Okay, so I can now log in and log out. So we got that basic functionality in there. Only thing I wanted to do, I want to make sure I add, is that we clear out the form when you log in. So I'm going to go back to my login function. And then I'm also going to make sure that this dot create password goes back to being an empty string. This dot create username goes back to being an empty string. Okay, so that way that clears out when we log in. Cool. So we're on our way. We're on our way. So I'm going to save that for now, and I'll see you guys in the next video.